Hello and welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. My name is Orla Keeling and I am the host of the podcast, where every week we bring you a brand new episode with guests ranging from Olympic champions to local heroes, coaches, support staff and anybody involved in the world of sport. Each week we will dive into different topics, including current affairs in sport, identity, skill, mindset, coaching, and also shine a light on those flying under the radar. So tune in for brand new episodes, new stories, and new insights you've never heard before. This episode is proudly sponsored by Sport Expo Ireland. Taking place at the Sport Ireland campus on April 21st and 22nd, 2027, attendees will hear from leading voices in sport, take part in interactive workshops and masterclasses. To learn more and register your interest, visit sportexpo.ie, which is linked in the description of the episode. Now, let's hear from today's guest. Okay, perfect. Delighted to be joined by Mr. Tom Cosker. This has taken a couple of years nearly at this rate, Tom, but good to sit down with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no problem at all. Nice to speak to you, Ola.
Can you give us your elevator pitch for the listeners?
Oh gosh, yes. So I'm a consultant orthopaedic surgeon working in Oxford, and I specialise in a particular sort of problem called orthopaedic oncology, which is bone and soft tissue cancer. And my particular specialty is mainly in the upper limb, but in both the upper and the lower limb.
Okay, very good. Eamon Devlin is the reason why we're both talking here.
Yes,
He
yes,
gave
right,
he
yeah.
he gave me a question. Ask him about the phrase 10,000 feet.
Asking about the 15,000 feet. Now, what was it? I don't know what he means by that. I'm trying to think. Do you know?
Not sure. He was. We were talking about. I said, what's the link? He said, oh, he's helping us with communication. I don't know. Was it about that?
Yeah, well, exactly. No, I mean, Amy's done some great work helping us with sort of team working, and I mean, as you know, he's been doing all the hard work with the sports professional guys. But it was really just looking at whether there was a connection between sort of high level sport and working at a high level in the operating theatre. And I think there probably is, and there's some useful lessons that can be learned on sort of both sides to make sure that we function to the highest level we possibly can, and also function very well as a team. Uh, so yeah, I think that's where he was heading.
Mm. I have a lot of coaches that listen. What are the transferable skills from the operating theatre to elite sport?
Well, I think one of the big things that sort of happened within surgery probably over the past 10 years is that we've introduced a thing called the WHO checklist, which is the World Health Organization checklist, and it's something that we put in place before we start. And the sort of the big benefit of that is that before you launch into what can be a very long and difficult operation, like a long and difficult game of sport or a endurance event or whatever you happen to be working in, it just makes you stop, reflect, makes you think, are you doing the right thing, the right procedure for the patient? Have you got the right team? Have you got the right equipment? Are there any special circumstances that you need to be aware of? So, for example, in sport, it might be high altitude or unusual playing environments, or something that's particularly unusual about the team that you're about to play, and really making sure that before you even press go, that your team is in the absolute best possible sort of position that they can be. So actually, yes, the more we sort of explored it, the more we found that there are a lot of cross similarities between working in top level sport and working in top level healthcare.
I interviewed Damien Hughes twice now, co presenter of the High Performance podcast, and I kind of gave out to him that he had never had a surgeon and an anaesthetist on, because to me that's the epitome of high performance. And he corrected me and said we did have a neurosurgeon on before.
Ah,
But when we talk about pressure, um, there's a very different level of pressure walking in when you're Arteta, at Arsenal and trying to win the Premier League versus yourself. Just how do you deal and cope with pressure of going into theatre?
yeah, well, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think actually, like with sport, preparation is just such an important part of it, and that really starts from a few days, if not weeks before, where you start to think about the case, you start to think about the team you need, about whether there's anyone else you need in theatre who's going to be able to provide that sort of additional level of assistance that you might require, and then just doing all of the sort of basic stuff on the run up to the surgery to make sure that you're in good condition. So you've slept well, you've read about the case, you understand exactly in your mind what you're going to do, but also you think about all the potential of, well, if something does happen, what am I going to do differently to get things back on track? How am I going to make sure that if the unexpected occurs, it becomes an expected event rather than an unexpected event. So yeah, I think really no matter how many times you've done it before, preparation is the key.
What do you How do you stay calm in the moments where things aren't going well, or as expected? Actually, is probably a better language for it.
Yeah, well, I think that is important. I mean, there are certain times when there is a degree of urgency. You've got to get on with something quickly, whether there's bleeding or there's a unexpected complication during the surgery. But again, um, I think a lot of that pressure can be minimized by the team that you've got around you. And if you're working with great people who are all thinking in the same way and they're all really focused on the task at hand, that means that when something like that does happen, which it inevitably will, you're in the sort of best possible position to get yourself out of trouble as quickly as you can.
One of the things I loved about your previous answer, or kind of you kind of touched on it a little bit. I was going to ask what allows you to be at your best, but you already mentioned kind of sleeping well and preparing. Are they the elements? Like it's funny, if I asked a footballer the same question, it'd probably be the same: preparation, sleeping well, eating well. There is a lot of transferables, even from a personal improvement standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right, Ola. And I think also there's a lot of analogies between the work we do in the airline industry as well, where they are particularly good at really understanding when things have gone wrong, why they've gone wrong, and what could be done differently next time. So, sort of to try and avoid the same mistake happening again. And as you'll be aware, they've done a lot of work, things on things like the sort of psychology of flying and the psychology of hierarchy, where, for example, in China and Korea and some of the Eastern cultures in particular, for a long time, there was a very hierarchical structure, so that it was very difficult for a more junior officer to question the captain and raise a concern. So even if they knew they were flying towards a mountain, it was very difficult for them to actually flag that as a worry. And the airline industry have sort of put a number of steps in place to try and make sure that gets gone away with, and it's actually much easier for people to raise concerns. And I think hopefully, in surgery we've learned some of those skills as well. So, for example, last year I was doing taking a tumor out of an elbow, and we put the implants in, and it was good, but it wasn't perhaps as perfect or as good as it could have been. And the representative just said, can I make a suggestion? And I said, yeah, absolutely, of course you can. And he just made a few small suggestions that meant we changed a couple of things around, and actually the function was hugely better than if we just carried on the course that we were going. And I think, historically, in the past, for example, a rep who's not a member of the surgical team might have felt embarrassed or felt it difficult to speak up or difficult to make a suggestion. But actually, in that particular case, their suggestion completely changed the operation. So I think a willingness to learn from your mistakes, about a willingness to learn from other people's experiences, what went wrong for them, what could have gone better, how could they do things better, to bring that into your own environment means that you've got the best possible chance of being that sort of premiership team that you all aspire to be.
Mm. You've reminded me I haven't read the checklist yet, and it's been on my shelf about 3 years. So I better actually read the thing now that you've brought up kind of the airline
Yeah,
industry. I'd love to know, is surgery, how much of it is talent versus learned skill?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd love to turn around to you and tell you that it was 99% talent, uh, but it's not, and yeah, I mean, again, you're thinking about sport. I love tennis, I love rugby, I love a variety of sports, and I can play those sports to a reasonable level, and to a competent level. But I knew for a fact that even at the age of 10, no matter how hard I'd trained or I'd worked at it, I would have improved, but I would never have become world class at that particular thing. And I guess there are some similarities in that with surgery, in that a lot of surgery is reasonably routine. We're doing the same thing, and anyone can get through it. And look, by no means am I saying that I'm anything exceptional, but I think there are certain colleagues that you see over the years who just have that added flair, that added sort of extra that perhaps others haven't got, and that demarcates them as being exceptional rather than being, sort of ordinary.
Mm. What can you define the flair? My favorite question is what separates the best from the rest. I'd love to get your take.
Yeah, well, that's right, and it's often that sort of it's often those very, very subtle differences, isn't it? It's the way that they hold the instruments, the way that they approach the handling of the tissues, the way that they do their dissection. Some of the very good surgeons that I operate with just make the operation look so easy. The tissue just falls apart. They achieve exactly what they set out to achieve, and it's all done sort of quickly, effortlessly, and relatively stress-free. Whereas, I've got other colleagues who just make it look more difficult. It just doesn't flow as naturally. And I always think when you watch some of the great tennis players or some of the great footballers, the way they handle the ball, the ball just looks like it's an extension of their arm or their leg. It just looks like it's part of them. And I think, for some of the great surgeons, that's exactly the same.
You come across a lot of young doctors all the time, and I'm always fascinated by human potential. And in sport, I always ask the question: barring catastrophic injury, what's the biggest barrier to someone reaching their potential?
Gosh, well, there's no doubt that it takes its sort of pound of flesh out of you, both physically and emotionally. I mean, I heard a very good analogy once. I took a year out of surgery and I worked in management consultancy for a year, and one of the directors of that firm had a really nice analogy, which was that you imagine you're standing at a gas stove and there are four burners on that stove, and one is your career, and one is your family, and one is your friends, and one is your health. And to do moderately well at this place, you needed to turn one of those burners off. And to do really well, you needed to turn two of them off. And to do exceptionally well, you needed to turn three of them off. And he said, look at me. I've become a director. I'm very wealthy. I'm divorced. I've lost my family. I didn't have a great relationship with my children. I don't really see or speak to them. I haven't got very many friends, and I largely live alone. And so it was an interesting analogy where the problem with success is that for most of us in life, it comes with a price, and that's the bit you've got to be careful of, is just making sure that you don't let it become all encompassing, that you don't give too much so that you lose those other really important things in life.
How do you switch off then? Are you good at that?
Well, I'm very lucky. So as I walk out of the hospital, I put it behind me, and I don't particularly think about it. I've got other colleagues who do. They take it home with them. They worry about it. It's not to say either is right. It's just how the way you're built. But I am lucky like that, and I suppose I'm lucky is that we don't have all the intrusion that top sports people have from the press, from social media, all those additional pressures. We are still relatively lucky. We go in, we do the job to the best of our ability, and then we walk away.
Who do you learn from, Tom? Like, is there people or surgeons or things you look at, read outside of work that helps you be the best you can be?
Yeah, well, I mean, over the years, obviously, you identify, mentors who are very gifted, and you try and make sure you spend as much time with them as you can. And even now, I still make the effort to duck into other people's operating theatres just to see how they're doing things, how they're doing a case, whether there's anything I can still learn from it. I try and read as much as I can. I'm really interested to see what's happening with artificial intelligence at the moment. So, I sometimes ask AI what they think of a particular operation that I'm doing, or um, whether they've got any sort of learning points from it. It's very interesting to see what it comes back with. I mean, of course, AI is only as good as the information that you give it. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I try and make sure that I speak to colleagues in those other industries, like the airline. I've got a few friends who are pilots, a few friends who are top sportsmen and women, and I sort of speak to them to see what's happening in their worlds as well.
Amazing. Well, look, it's fascinating. I could go on about it for hours, but you're a busy man. I'm going to move on to the sideline seven. It's the same seven questions at the end of every episode.
Okay.
Tom, I get the sense you are quite philosophical and deep thinker. So I'm looking. I'm excited to hear your favorite quote.
Oh my goodness, Ollie, you've sprung that uh, on me. Goodness me. Oh, well, it would have to be something around always give your absolute best. So from the minute I always say to my children, whatever you're doing, whether you're working in a factory, or you're working on a production line, or whether you're flying a plane, or whether you're doing an operation, whatever it is, always give your absolute best, because people in life recognize when you're trying your best, and successful people recognize recognize sort of aspiration and enthusiasm, and they will encourage those people to rise to the top. So yeah, I think my favorite quote is always give it 110%.
Question two, Tom. The best sporting event you've been to?
I went to Wimbledon about 20 years ago now, and I shall be in the queue again in 2 weeks' time with my children to make sure we get back to Wimbledon, and we immerse ourselves in a day of tennis.
Amazing. Question 3, the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Um, well, I think, in surgery, there is always death around the corner. And, when you have an unexpected death, particularly one that happens in the operating theatre, that is always a tough moment for, obviously the patient and their family, but also the team, for the surgical team, all of the nursing team as well, and myself personally. We try and anticipate when that's going to happen and prevent it, but sometimes it just does. But I always say to the team, you've got to just try and pick yourself up and recognize that we all were doing our absolute best for the patient. It just wasn't meant to be, and hopefully they've gone to a better place.
Mm. On the flip side, then, your biggest achievement. I usually ask in or outside of sports, so you can pick in or outside the theatre.
Um, I've just been elected president of the British Orthopaedic Oncology Society, so that's a nice recognition of the work that I've been doing. But I think practically we use some equipment called jigs, which are um, implants that attach to the patient to help us resect the tumor more effectively. And I helped get those onto the national framework so that all patients across the country would have access to them, and it would improve their experience of cancer surgery. So for me, that was a big win.
Wow. And congratulations on your recent title as
Thank
well.
you.
Um, Question 5, advice to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, I was lucky, Ola, because from the age of 12, I knew I wanted to become a surgeon. So it was all sort of laid out, and I knew the hoops that I needed to jump through to get through to that. So for me as an 18-year-old, I would just say, keep going. But if I was speaking to an 18-year-old now. My son the eldest son is just turning 17. It goes back to that thing of doing your best. Whether you're doing a job in the garden for someone, whether you're laying a drive, whether you're working in a factory, whatever you happen to be doing, just give it that day, just give it your absolute best that you can, because people respond to that.
Amazing. Question 6, dream dinner guest and why?
Dream, dream to the guest and why. For all the wrong reasons, I would love to have dinner with President Trump. Uh, Not because I agree with any of his policies, but I just think he's such a one-off human being. I would just be so intrigued to have an hour with him.
Very good. I don't think Trump has come up before. Maybe he has. Tom, final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
Well, this is probably chapter 6 of 15, I hope. So we're about halfway through, and we're building up towards the plot thickening, and hopefully some more twists and turns before we reach our finale.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that and for keeping in touch. Tom, thank you for your time. I absolutely love this.
No, no problem, Ola. Take care.
And that is it for today's episode of the Sideline Live podcast. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing their story, insights, and experiences with you, the audience. If you did enjoy the episode, please do leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it does help the show grow. If you are interested in more content and information or hearing from upcoming guests, you can follow our social medias at The Sideline Live, which are linked in the description box of the episode. If you do have any guest suggestions or topics you would like to have covered, you can send us a message on social media or email thesidelinelive@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.